Hey y'all, what's up? What's up? Welcome to another episode of the Two Young Pastors Podcast. Today we are talking about why we love and continue to stay Christian. We've been hearing a lot, man, about people leaving the church. I know that there are some examples I have in my mind of individuals, worship leaders leaving the church, of prominent pastors leaving the church, and by church I mean the global church, not just Adventism. And we're like, hey, let's take a moment and let's share with individuals of why we continue to be Christian, and continue to share and build out this church that we believe God has put into the world and started it and wants it to expand. So that's what we're talking about today. Before we go into the topic, Jajuan, I know that Thanksgiving just passed away, man. How was your Thanksgiving? What was your plate like, man?
I mean, it was good. Aside from the Ravens losing, that kind of not gonna lie, that ruined it for me. That ruined it for me. But your typical soul food. That's what was on my plate, bro. I'm not even gonna try to exacerbate it. But that was me. How about you, man?
Same here, bro. We went to go watch that game together, so it was kind of sad. And the one thing that I got out of it was a gravy boat. They were passing out those things out at the beginning, and I really, really wanted one.
Yeah.
So went out and grabbed one. The plate this year, my cousin Jonathan, he did a great job of organizing everything. So we had soul food, definitely appropriated culture there. But we love that. And then we had Indian food too. So it was like a great mixture, man. Great,
Yeah.
great, great, great. But one of the conversations, man, that happened all throughout that weekend was this idea of not only like Charlie Kirk and all this other stuff. We had like a Friendsgiving on Saturday night, and we're talking about Christianity and like republicanism, like all that stuff, and how it's kind of being melded together. And one of the things that popped up, and I noticed that around the table where there were individuals that had left the church, not only left the church, but they left, and they are now and now they're atheists. So not only have they left the church, but they are not continue on in their religious identity anymore. So as I was thinking through that, and as I was processing through that, as I not sure what happened there, but as I was processing through it, man, I realized that we were indeed like trying to work through those things, but I had to think to myself after those conversations, right? Of like, why am I remaining in the church? What makes me happy to wake up and continue to be Christian? Because being Christian is a choice. I think that's what a lot of us are forgetting, that if you are so unhappy about being in the church, capital C, right? In Christianity, you have an option of not being in it. Like we were talking about being complainers in church this past Saturday and that was the theme of the sermon, right? The theme of the sermon was stop complaining, right?
Yeah.
Like if you really hate it so much and you're always complaining about this and that and this and this and that, right? Like you have an option of leaving. And if you don't want to change your perspective, if you don't want to help out in making those changes, even the ministry of Jesus said, "Hey, you can either follow me or you don't have to." And he
Yeah.
gave them that choice, and they left. And the crazy thing about them leaving, man, is Jesus did not he did not curse them for making the decision not to follow him, right? They left. Like the rich young ruler continued to be rich after he rejected Jesus. Like that's the part of the story that I think we like don't think through. So I thought about a question like, why do you and I were pastors, were ordained, we go through things. There are complaints that we both have about our system, about our churches, not and we still remain in them. So my question for you is, bro, why do you remain a Christian when there are so many people that are looking at all these things and then leaving?
I think this is such a loaded topic. This is a loaded topic. Like let's start with that.
Mhm.
Um I think that as a pastor, I have the privilege of knowing I have the privilege of knowing the true story better than most individuals ever will.
Mhm.
What do I mean by that? I think it is well documented that there's a large population within the Christian church that does not read their Bible at least one time a week. Okay.
Mm, that's true.
Large population. Not saying that it's most, not saying that it's 75%. I'm saying that it's well documented that there's a large population that does not read their Bible at least once a week,
Mhm.
52 weeks in a year. And so 9 times out of 10, there are a number of believers who are getting their understanding of Christianity from pastors and fellow church members. And what's interesting, I think Myron Edmonds, um, he made a post on Facebook this past weekend where he was just like, um, it's your preferences that are causing individuals to essentially leave churches, not
Yeah.
doctrine. People are not leaving church, or the pews are not empty because people have an issue with doctrines as much as they have an issue with the fact that you are making your preference doctrine, right?
Mm,
And I said, ooh, ooh.
that's
But when I think of that, right, I think about the fact that there are individuals who, when they get to a certain age, have the opportunity to kind of sort of see the world for themselves,
mhm.
yet they have not been properly taught what the Bible says.
Yeah.
Okay. They've been taught maybe, and I'll say this, they've been taught their denomination's lens of the
Mm,
Bible, not necessarily that they've been taught the Bible. Why do I say that? Many times, people, good natured, goodwill, when they're looking for their beliefs, they kind of sort of proof text it. What I mean by that is they go in to the Bible and they just look for verses to support what they're saying. And the problem with that is that it's kind of sort of like coming in, like interrupting a conversation. Like we're having a conversation, then a person comes in and they go to another person and say, "Hey, so Jawan was saying this to Elijah, and this is what he meant."
yeah.
The problem is that if you don't understand the context in which I was saying it, you can misapply and you can misinterpret what I was saying.
Mhm.
So when you have a number of individuals who are not reading their word enough for themselves, and when they're depending on what leadership in their church is saying, they are likely getting a watered down version of what the Bible really is trying to accomplish and say, because it is likely being communicated to them through their denomination's lens, through their denomination's agenda. And the truth is this: no one's perfect, so we don't know, if their pastor or if their elder has a proper understanding of the text themselves. And thus, what would 9 times out of 10 happen is they are getting a proof text version of the Bible rather than understanding the full narrative of
Mm,
which the Bible was presented in. And so when I think about that, I think that leads to individuals creating preferences or establishing preferences that they raise up to the level of doctrines, and those preferences are what's causing individuals to leave the church. Not necessarily the doctrines, because the doctrines themselves are good. They're
mhm,
amazing.
mhm.
But I think it's how we handle the doctrines, is how we handle our preferences, rather, that causes individuals to indeed leave the church. But that's me. What about you, man?
So, uh, you're saying that you're continue to be Christian and you're staying within the church because you've been able to read and you're like, hey, this is what doctrine is, this is what biblical principles are, and then these are opinions, and you're like, I can know what opinions are because those are opinions, and and these are doctrines,
That's
right?
right.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Okay.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
man. For me, why I love being Christian, why I continue to be one, is because I look out into the world right now, man, and the idea that the Bible gives me a identity that I don't have to earn is like
Yes.
a peace of mind. And what I mean by that is, like, oftentimes when people ask you, like, "Hey, what do you do? Right? And then you kind of have to give, well, I do this. How'd you get there? I got there because I got this degree. I knew these people, da da da. So you're kind of explaining how you got to where you are. And it's more like it's merit based, right? So I was listening to this influencer and so she and her husband are both black, but they live in a predominantly white area of the city,
Okay.
and the area is like very affluent. And she was explaining as she was making dinner, like every single time I go out into like the most expensive gym in the area, right? People always ask me, "Hey, like you look like you belong here," and I was like, "That's kind of crazy to hear, right?" It's just like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
And people don't hear themselves, right, when they say those things. And it's just like, hey, it it feels like if you don't look a certain way and you're in certain areas in either a company or in a city and it's more affluent, it's like, oh, you had to do something that's different to get into this area. So you have to earn it, right? And she was also saying how when they go and to these nice places to vacation that's like super upscale,
Yeah.
like people will always come up and ask them, "Hey, are you a rapper or are you an athlete?" to her husband, right? And I was
Oh,
listening to that, and I was like, "Oh my
uh,
gosh!"
that's
Like
that's that's racism. That's
100%. And
what?
and she was sharing how like she's going to start changing their answers and just making up things. Like they're both in tech, and she's
That's
like, you know what? I'm just gonna start just sharing random things and then seeing what their responses are. And then hearing that, I was like, man, we live in a world where you have to like, even if you have it, you have to explain why you have it, right?
yeah.
Like it's just not like, hey, like you did something, but no, you had to do something that's different from everyone else to get there. But I
Yes.
love how in our faith, man, it's it's God that gives us our identity, right? It's God that gives it. It's not merit based, right?
Yeah.
It's acceptance where you receive it, and based on that reception your life changes.
Yes.
And what I lo- and the deepest thing I love about that is this: the only person that could take away your identity is the one that gave it to you,
Mm.
right? So if I've received this identity of being worth, right, so much more than I can imagine. The only person that can take it away from me is a person that gave it to me,
Mm.
right? And when I think about that in a world where everything is earned, you have to pay for everything, everything is pretty much a transactional thing.
Yeah.
With God, it is not that way at all. And in our faith, you cannot read the Bible for a whole year, right? I would not recommend that, right? And have a
Like
bad,
zero.
yeah,
People
and
might understand.
and have a bad like Christian spirituality,
Okay.
right? But the identity that God gives you, right, is much more than a checklist of rituals that you do to maintain that identity.
So quick question, because you never answered it.
Yeah.
Why do you think people are leaving the church?
So that wasn't the question. The question was, why are you staying in the church? And the reason I'm staying in the church is because,
My
yeah,
bad.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
My bad.
You're good, you're good, you're good. But why I think people are leaving the church to answer that question is because when we look through the idea, so I had friends that left in COVID, right? I had friends that left before COVID, and their idea of God was, I can't believe God can be good if he allows all these things to happen, like
Yeah.
all these crazy things in the world to happen. So that's why I don't believe in God. And when I look back and I didn't engage in that conversation because I knew that it was still raw. I knew that things were still happening. So I said, hey, like I appreciate you telling me, right? And then I kind of left it at that. And I've told them this multiple times, so I can share it with you too. It's turned from a argument into one where they're not mad at God. They're like mad at the church because it's turned from, hey, I can't believe in a God anymore. Now I'm mad that the church exists. Because
Whoa.
because either they're collecting tithe and offering, right? And it's going into all these things that I don't agree with, right? Or they're manipulating people into making certain this and that. And dude, it's moved from an argument into one that's emotional. And when I think about it, it's because they fundamentally don't understand who God is and the way that He interacts with us.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I tend to agree. I tend to agree, and I think that it's tied to most individuals not understanding the full story.
Mhm.
And because they don't understand the full story, they kind of sort of get bits and pieces. And I mean, like, there's a lot that individuals need to wrestle with, anyhow.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're right. But what do you say to individuals who kind of sort of are like that? Because that's really where I think the meat of this conversation kind of sort of stands. It's one thing to say why we're still while we're in the church. I mean, we're pastors, and so our experience is different from like members.
Mhm.
Uh, so for individuals who never went to school, who kind of sort of who didn't, because at least I don't know about how things were at Washington Adventist University, but at Oakwood, um, there was kind of sort of like a reset um, in my faith journey.
Mm.
Because I came there and I had an understanding, somewhat of an understanding of what Adventist theology taught.
You're
I
right. Yeah.
went to Oakwood, and I think that it broadened and
Mhm.
made the picture a lot clearer, a
Mhm.
lot clearer. And I think that saved my life, saved
Mm.
my view of being not only just Christian, of being, but also of being a church member. Uh,
Mhm.
and so that's me.
That
Uh,
same here.
okay,
Same here. Where our professors challenged us, bro. Where I walked in like very conservative because that's where I knew, right?
Yeah.
Like very, very conservative. And when I walked in, man, like I would hear them say some things like, why can't God be a woman? Right? The Bible does not say, right, that he has form. So why can't we give God um um attributes, right? Uh, that we can say, hey, he's also a mother as well, right? And in my mind, I was like, that does not sound right because that's not what I was told, right? God is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and pronouns don't change, right? And when I sat down and I processed through scripture, I was explaining to Leah that the reason that individuals don't like talking to people that disagree with them is because they oftentimes, especially in a religious setting, can't pull from a source material, right? And then say, this is why I believe in what I believe in. And
yeah,
when my family engages with me, either at Sabbath lunch or at dinner, or they're like, "Hey, Dino, like, why do you guys do this and why do you guys do that and why did you say this?" Right? And then I go, "Well, the Bible tells me this, this, and this, and then it also says this, this, and this, right?" And
yeah,
then their response often is, "But that's not what we were taught. We were taught that this means this and this means that, and then da 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 da." And then I'm like, "Okay, show it to me in the text. Like where in the text are you getting that from?" And oftentimes it's, well, I don't need to show you. You show me because you're the pastor, right? So you have to tell me. I'm like, I don't believe in what you believe in, so I can't show you through the text. And it's just a whole
so
you
you want me to prove a negative?
yeah, like you want me to prove what you believe in when I'm telling you I don't believe in what you believe in. It's like a whole crazy thing, man.
But I think that's kind of sort of like the tension of being a pastor in the church, because like when we went to school, like it literally flipped the script. Because I'll be honest, before going to school, I believed that we were saved by our works. I
Mhm,
believe that if we did not keep the law, we would not go to heaven,
mhm.
right? That is what I believed. And I think I'm still dealing with that trauma right now of like if I'm sinning, I cannot make it into heaven. Like to a certain extent, I gotta live a perfect life,
Yeah.
right? And I know in school I've been taught no righteousness by faith, like in Jesus Christ.
Mhm.
Like before school, I believe there was a picture. David Asherick, he Pastor David Asherick, he like preached sermon series, and he showed a picture of like what at the center of our theology was. And I believe that like initially it seemed like the law of God, the Ten Commandments were like at the center. I
It
don't
was
know
a
if you ever
painting.
saw this.
Yeah, it was a painting of James White, right, that he made or
Yeah.
someone made? Yeah.
So yes. And the law was in the center, right? And you saw Jesus kind of sort of like in the back, like
N The cross was somewhere else in the painting
it was
on
like
the side. Yeah,
it was like far in the back.
yeah.
But like what was like prominent was the law, right?
Mhm,
And then there was a new painting, a new work of art that was put together, and Jesus was the most prominent thing. His death on the cross was the most prominent thing.
mhm,
And see, I think that kind of sort of goes to why I am still in the church, and why I'm still a Christian, and it's because I have a view of the gospel message that is different from what other individuals have.
mm,
And so I think I kind of sort of want to ask, based on what I just said, what do you think most people see or think when they're thinking about what Christianity actually is?
mhm.
What do you think most people think Christianity is?
They think it's a culture. I think, when people look at Christians, I was talking to, I have friends that are Muslim, and they're, like, not just, like, on surface level Muslims, like, they're, like, practicing Muslims where if we're playing, basketball outside and the sun is setting, they'll pause the game and they'll go and they'll take out their prayer mats and they'll pray on the side of the court.
Yeah,
Like they're like very practicing Muslims.
yeah,
And when they see us, it's more cultural than it is religious. And
mhm,
what I mean by that is there are things that even in my friend group that is Christian that they'll pick and choose to do. And it's just like, oh well, I believe in that. I don't believe in this.
okay,
And it's more of a, hey, I was born Christian and I happen to be Christian, and this is what I do,
mhm,
right? And I agree with some things and I don't agree with some things.
yeah,
And I gotta say that's such a bad uh, like image of what it means to be Christian because there's a sacrificial portion of our faith where people do not like to emphasize. Where if you read the text and the text tells you something, it's supposed to change your opinion on the matter. And
yeah,
you don't change the text, right? The text is supposed to change you.
that's right.
And that's the part of of college that I think stuck with me the most is I had a lot of preconceived ideas. Like I wouldn't go to the theater, right? Because like my parents were like, you're not supposed to go to theater because
You were conservative, conservative.
conservative, right? And then I looked at the text and in the Bible, and I was like, wait, there's nothing in here talking about movies and theaters. It just says don't be in a assembly of wickedness somewhere in the Psalms, right?
I think that you're more so teetering into like Ellen White territory now, because like as Adventists, a lot of individuals or a number of individuals don't go to theaters because of a quote that they read from one of Ellen White's writings.
Right.
That
But
that's
she
very
pulled from a passage in either the Psalm or the Proverbs, right?
Okay.
Where the wisdom was do not take a seat in the presence of all these people, right? And they're like, hey, she says it, the Bible says it, so we're never going to win, right?
So I have a question. Did Ellen White just proof text?
No, she actually didn't because it made sense in her time. Because in that time, they would be smoking and drinking and a whole bunch of stuff happening in the theater, right? So in her context, I would 100% tell people, hey, I don't know if going to the theater at that time was the best thing to do as a Christian because you would be surrounded by all these elements,
Mm.
right? And it would be like, hey, you cannot go without partaking in those things, right?
Oh, understood. Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And in the same way, there are places in India, right, where if you go to watch a theater, because my background is South Asian, right, and in the filming industry, right, yeah, in the filming industry, they play a picture of their god before the film. So before the film even starts,
Oh, oh.
they play a picture of their god as like a yeah.
Me. Okay, so we just went to a football game. Okay. We just went to a football game, which
Yeah.
is kind of inherently violent. Um, so, so that's one. But in addition, there's alcohol that's present there.
Yeah.
There's unhealthy foods that are present there, and there's sports betting. You
Yeah.
know, and the reason why I say sports betting is because I think there's a certain element of greed in the sports betting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm just trying to I want to make it real relevant.
Yeah.
Are
Yeah.
we problematic for being present there? Like,
I don't think so, man. And here's why I'm saying I don't think so is because number one, it's an opinion, right? We take the best things out of the Bible, the principles that we can, and then we come and we make a decision if it's not black and white in the Word of God, right? So when we look at going to a stadium to watch a game, not everyone is drinking. There are only like it's just there and it's an option. There's no smoking. It's not allowed, right? So there's like videos being played. You can't even vape, right? Um,
you
uh,
can't, you can't.
no,
There was definitely someone. There
there
were a
were
couple
definitely there was definitely a couple people,
in
yeah.
front.
Uh, which which I was like, do I be a good citizen and tell someone? But I'm like, it's not
Good
bothering
citizen is
me.
crazy. Good citizen is crazy.
Like I
You
don't
know
really
how bad
care.
the alcohol consumption at football games is, or any sporting event is. Like, we were outside, cold, y'all, cold, and of course, in times like these, they offer hot chocolate. This is how bad we like. There's an option where you pay a little bit extra, and they dump some alcohol in your hot chocolate. Like,
Yep,
but
yep.
anyway, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
But in the same way, man, that initial um guidance from Ellen White was not to go. It was guidance, right? It was like, hey, like don't go because basically everyone is smoking, everyone's drinking, and da da da. Da.
Yeah.
In the same way, if you go to a football game, I wouldn't compare it in the same way because the way that I've read, not in her text, but the movie going culture back in the day is that it was kind of crazy. It was not family friendly at all, right? It was not an environment where they were trying to be family friendly,
Good to know. Good to know.
right?
Okay. I know I
But
distracted you from your overall point. I know I distracted you from your overall point.
no, no, no. Again, this is what I love about being Christian, right? Is that you can have conversations in the gray area, right? Based on the word of God, when in other cultures and in other faith systems, it's like, well, what does the imam say? What does the priest say? Right? And then based on their opinion, you make a decision. But in being Christian, we all are autonomous in the sense that we have the same spirit of God in you that's in me, and we could come together and make a decision. And you can have your opinion, and I can have mine. And as long as it's based on the word of God, we can have a conversation.
And I agree that that's how it should be. I think that that's not how it is.
No, it's
Because
not.
I mean, like, people come to pastors all the time. Like, pastor, like, how am I supposed to keep the Sabbath? Pastor, how am I supposed? Is it okay for me to drink? Pastor, is it okay for me to um to be in a relationship with a person who is not a Sabbath keeper? Like they are looking to us a lot of times for how they should live, which is
Mhm.
like the difficulty, because they don't want to assume any personal responsibility for their actions. They kind of sort of want,
Mm.
well, my
Pastor
pastor,
Sanders told me it was okay.
yeah. And so I say that because there are several people who will say, "Oh, well, we shouldn't go to movie theaters because Ellen White said this," you know. And so it's like, to a certain extent, even within the Adventist church, we have that issue of going to and saying, "Oh, well, this person who's a spiritual authority in our movement, they said this, and so because they said this, that means that we shouldn't do it."
Mhm.
And I'm kind of sort of like, but is she in the Bible though? Like, is she in the Bible?
Mm.
Like, are we elevating her up like? Uh, so anyway, but
We
anyway,
definitely are, yeah.
but okay. So you said that, growing up, parents were like, "Nah, no movie theaters," and then you kind of sort of like read the text for yourself, and you were like, "Nah, like this is not what it is, or what they're fearing it was."
Yeah, because it's like again, in present context, so I can't think about what going to a movie will look like in 50 years from now, right?
Yeah.
I'm talking about like right now, right? If I want to go and watch Zootopia 2, right? Um, the way that our Adventist culture, if you're in that part of our on that part of the spectrum, was you would wait for the movie to come out on DVD or now streaming, and then you would watch it at home instead of going to the theater, as if there was something wrong with the building itself. It was you can't enter into that building because it holds all these things, right? And then I had to talk with myself. I was like, is it the building or is it the content, right? Like, is it the building that is the problem, or now it's shifted into content that could be the issue, right? It's like, hey, should we be going and watching some films that promote either ideas or they just have it just like absurd nudity, right? Where just like, hey, I like it again falls on that line of hey, making the best decision that supports your spiritual growth,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
And then me as a pastor, I can give you my opinion and say, hey, I don't think going to the theater is wrong, but I think it's the content you watch, right? I feel like that's where the conversation is now. Where at first it was, hey, you should not be going to that building at all because you're just being inundated with
And
all these
it's
things.
it's such a nuanced topic. It's such a nuanced topic indeed. It is. It is received.
Yeah. But what was something in your background, man, when you were growing up that you had to kind of process through?
Um, I had to process through for myself. Topic of like jewelry,
Uh-huh.
or let's say modesty. Modesty. What does
Yeah.
modesty look like? Um, because growing up, I was told that Christians should not, cannot get tattoos,
Mhm.
can't get piercings, can't wear jewelry. And I was taught and told that it is sinful. It's a sin for you to do such a thing. Um, and so that, in addition, I was taught that wearing makeup was a sin and that it was
Mm.
worldly. And
Getting
so yeah,
getting
those
your
are
nails
like, and
or
it was
that.
mainly targeted towards women because men don't really wear makeup. But I remember, like all forms of wearing makeup, like whether it's you um doing a woman doing her face, whether it's her, getting her fingernails done, her feet done. It was like a, nah, you're supposed to be modest. You're so, because the text says, essentially be more concerned with um what the internal rather than outward external adorning. um and because of that, I was taught, all of us should be more concerned about improving and enhancing our character within, rather than
Mhm.
building up our external image,
Mhm.
and I kind of sort of had to realize that there's levels to this. There's levels to this. Um, that yes, there's context first and foremost,
Yeah.
because there was, when it came to jewelry, when it came to body markings, tattoos, when it came to piercings, um, contextually speaking, in their time, they had different meanings than they have now. They had different meanings than they have now. And so that's one thing. But I think it's similar. Like you can understand the jewelry thing, because in your culture, wearing jewelry means something more than it means in the American context.
Mhm.
Because I believe in your culture, right? You wearing gold, it kind of sort of reflects your place in society to a certain extent. Is that it?
Yeah, so it almost parallels the Bible culture where the more gold you have, the more status you have, but
Yeah.
also gold was a or is currently right now in the culture a representation of like your spiritual class as well. I could be getting it wrong, but I feel like that's where it is.
And so like that's crucial, right? Because there were individuals in the faith who were mixing with individuals of other faiths, and they were putting on certain items, and actually ascribing it to for the same meaning. And so God had to say, don't do this, don't do this. Like, they were actually getting caught up with people who were doing it. And it's not like how it is today, where you got people who are believers and people who aren't believers. And you can hang around individuals who are, let's say, atheists or not as serious. They drink and you could be like, I'm good. For some odd reason, it was like they were like, you're doing it, let me do it too. Your God is Hashanah. All right, let me give Hashanah a chance, even though I got the God. Like,
Yeah.
today, we like, I think it's very clear. Oh, you serve Hashanah? That's just a made up name, by the way, guys. Just making sure.
Yeah.
Like, you serve Hashanah. Oh, okay. Like, today we're like, oh, you serve Hashanah. We're like, good luck with that. I got my Jesus. Like, they in the Bible, they were legit like, oh, you serve Hashanah? What Hashanah about? What you got to sacrifice? Oh, word?
Mhm.
Oh, let me give that a shot. Different, different,
Mhm. I'm with you. I'm with
different.
you. I'm
And
with
so
you.
and so and so, like, when I think about that, I think about, like, the fact that, like, it's a different context. It's a different context. And the world that we live in today, we have ascribed different meanings. And so this is why the concept of convictions are so important, because your personal convictions, when it's the gray area, right? When we're talking about the gray, your personal convictions really do matter so much for your personal walk with God, not
Mhm.
the corporate walk with God.
Mhm.
And getting back to, like, the main topic at hand, the reason why I am able to remain within a church, right, versus why there are a number of individuals who have left the church. They have left the church over gray matters.
Mm.
They haven't left the church because of black and white.
Mhm.
Like, you can't sit here and say that God is not a love. Like, you can't sit here and say God is not a loving God if you actually know the full story.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that it's not going to be challenging. Not saying that how God views things, how God handles things. I'm not saying that it's not challenging to accept. But I am saying that if you fully know the black and white, and the black and white is that God is a loving God. He loves everyone, and that he loved us so much that he came to save us,
Mhm.
right? And that sin is bad. Sin leads to death. Like lying, cheating, stealing, these things are bad. We can all agree that these things are bad, right?
Mhm.
Like, that's black and white. But the problem is that there are several individuals who are actually leaving the church over what you can consider being in the gray. It's a gray issue. It's not a black and white issue.
Mhm.
And so I think that if individuals kind of sort of stay on task,
Yeah.
if we keep the main thing, it can really help us. But honestly, I think that this conversation, it can't just be a one-time, one-on conversation,
Mhm.
because if we're going to talk about why we have stayed in the church, we we have to talk about how and when our faith has indeed been shaken,
Mhm.
and how, because it's a very valid thing that people are leaving the church.
Yeah. Yeah.
People have valid reasons for why people leave the church and why people leave God. There are
Mhm.
individuals who have been oppressed. There are individuals who have been abused, and these are things that you gotta speak to. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
that's something that me personally, I had to process through. I'm still processing through, and that God is slowly but surely convicting me on, as to how I need to show up today, so that I'm actually connected to God and keeping Him at the center.
Yeah. 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 No, you're absolutely right. Like we are not trying to downplay some of the real trauma that individuals have gone through, and then they've made the decision to leave or to stop believing. But in our experience, man, I just want to kind of talk through and be like, hey, after hearing so many different reasons of why individuals leave or they stop believing, hey, let's have a conversation of why you and I are still here and why we still believe. And we want to know if you're listening or you're watching, what is keeping you in the faith? What is giving you that continued like, hey, I want to continue to stay rooted and planted and still being a part of the system, still being a part of the faith, and the church, the capital C church. We want to know what is challenging you as well. What are you like, hey, I'm looking at this right now. This is happening and it's really challenging my faith. If I want to continue to on or shift and be into something else, we want to know what is happening in your life. And don't be afraid to be in the comments and talking. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Two Young Pastors podcast. Hey, we at 70, man. We at 70 subscribers on YouTube. Don't know what the rest of the subscription stuff looks like on the other platforms on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and everywhere else, but numbers are ticking up. So thank you guys. But don't forget, hit that comment um section on the podcast, that's just audio, and give us feedback. We would love to know what else you guys want us to cover. But Jawan, is there anything else before we end this episode?
Hey, make sure that you take advantage of the holiday season. If you have loved ones, make sure that you spend time with them. If you have individuals that you have aught with, please do to the best of your ability, attempt to reconcile if it's possible. Please don't allow this time to go by without missing it. We're closing out the year 2025, and so make sure you close it out well. This is the final stretch. 2026 is coming, so let's make sure that we're walking into 2026 on the right note. So listen, please like, share, subscribe, and please, indeed, continue to prosper, especially as we're closing out 2025. That's all I got, bro.
All right, y'all. We'll catch you on the next one.